Bumpy Johnson didn't need a gun to be feared. He carried something far more intimate, a straight razor. People asked him all the time, why not a .45 like every other gangster prowling New York? Why walk into danger armed with a barber's blade instead of firepower? Bumpy would just grin and say, guns make noise, guns attract cops. A razor, that's quiet. That's personal. On the night of March 15, 1935, at precisely 11:47 p.m., a man named Vincent "Vic the Blade" Romano found out exactly what personal meant. Inside the legendary Savoy Ballroom, Duke Ellington was mid-performance, playing It Don't Mean a Thing, when the room froze. A $200 bottle of Dom Perignon was just launched like a garden hose over the stage. And the man who did it? Vic Romano, a capo under Dutch Schultz, smiling smugly as Duke was soaked like some street performer. Everything halted. The music died. Eyes locked onto Vic. Among them, Bumpy Johnson, calm as ever, reached for his waistband, not for a firearm but for that ruthless sliver of steel. At that instant, everyone in the room knew. Vic had just signed his execution papers. The Savoy Ballroom wasn't like the whites-only cotton club where black musicians played behind a curtain of segregation. No, this place had soul. The Savoy was Harlem's heartbeat, packed, with black and white bodies moving as one. It was a sanctuary of togetherness in a country torn by color lines. The dancing, the music, the shared joy. This was sacred ground in a segregated America. They called it the home of happy feet for a reason. A venue so huge it stretched an entire block along Lenox Avenue between 140th and 141st Streets, 2 iconic bandstands, a floor of polished maple that could support 4,000 dancers, and tonight, Duke Ellington's orchestra had that floor quaking with rhythm and life until Romano spat his champagne in salt. But Bumpy wasn't there to party. He stood at the edge of it all, quiet, watching, always watching. At 28, his presence was legend already. A man feared not for show, but because principle ran deeper than fear. Harlem's street games, numbers holes, underground clubs all danced under Bumpy's silent umbrella of protection. Not out of obligation, but respect. They chose him. He wore it well, charcoal three-piece suit flawlessly tailored, crisp white shirt, a jet black tie, and polished patent leather shoes that clicked like a metronome. Hidden within his waistband was a piece of Sheffield steel, 7 inches of shining truth clipped in a custom sheath. Right beside him, Stephanie Sinclair, Clair, the queen of Harlem's numbers racket, draped in crimson elegance, and Junie Bird, Bumpy's right hand, a towering force built like a wrecking ball. In contrast, at a front table near Duke's piano sat Vic Romano, slouched, drunk, surrounded by 6 loud Italians, all packing heat, all too proud. Their voices poisoned the air with racial slurs, mumbled loud enough to be statements, snickers at the dancers, disgusting comments about the women in the room. Bumpy watched, calculated, waited for the line to be crossed. Then it happened. Duke's fingers hit a crescendo. The horns soared. Then Romano, in a burst of drunken arrogance, popped open the champagne and doused the king of Harlem jazz mid-performance, soaked Duke's tux. Splash hit the piano, even his face. The crowd gasped in stunned disbelief. The music stopped. Duke stood, drenched, and wore that haunted poker face black performers had perfected for moments just like this, when dignity battled humiliation. And then Vic laughed. Loud. Mean. Dance, boy. Earn your money. It hit like a slap across the ballroom, and that silence cold, suffocating fell. Not a pause, a premonition. Bumpy's shoes clicked once, twice, a third time. He moved. Off the wall, toward the scene, steps echoing through maple and memory. The sea of onlookers parted without command. They'd seen this before. They knew what came next. Hand on his waistband, but not the kind of weapon that popped or echoed. No, this was steel that whispered. Vic kept laughing until Bumpy reached his table. The sound died on his lips when he saw him face to face. Bumpy wasn't angry. There was no rage, just that studied stillness. The look of a man weighing distance, pain, and purpose. Get up, Vic. Bumpy said, quiet as a confession. It wasn't a suggestion. Vic tried bravado, grinned. What's your problem, boy? That single word cracked across the room, louder than a gun. Boy. Bumpy didn't flinch, just moved ever so carefully, pulling something from his jacket. Not a gun. The leather sheath holding that blade, dark against his palm. I said, get up. This time, Vic stood. His men reached for their weapons, but before they could unholster, Bumpy's voice cut through like a siren. Tell your boys if they draw, they won't live to regret it. And in that still room, everyone remembered the stories. 3 of Schultz's debt collectors, found last month in a Harlem alley. Throats cleanly sliced, a former ally who'd betrayed Stephanie to the mob, Tongulus corpse in a stairwell, and a racist cop bought off by Schultz's men, dead in the East River with traitor carved right into his chest. When Bumpy threatened, reality followed. No one dared test that timeline. With razor still untouched in his sheath, Bumpy stepped into Vic's personal space. Close enough that his cologne, bergamot, warm and sharp, cut through the alcohol stink. Vic looked into those dead, steady eyes. He soaped Duke, Bumpy said, calm, controlled. Middle of the show, in Harlem. Want to tell me why you thought that was a good idea? Vic's face twisted, desperate. It was just a joke. A joke. Bumpy's thumb brushed the sheath. Want to hear a joke, Vic? Last month, 3 of your guys stepped inside a Harlem barbershop, thought they could scare the owner. Know what's funny? We're still collecting chunks of them. Vic's color drained like someone flipped a switch. Because this, Bumpy continued, voice just loud enough to reach every ear in the ballroom. This is Harlem, and Harlem has rules. The blade came out then, slow, almost ceremonial. 7 inches of polished conviction reflecting the light. Rule 1, you respect the people. Rule 2, you respect the music. Rule 3, he held it high now, turning the steel between forefinger and thumb. You don't humiliate Duke Ellington, and you sure as hell don't expect to leave with your face still attached? Vic's hands trembled. I'm connected, he stammered. I'm with Dutch Schultz. Bumpy laughed. Low. Cold. You think that scares me? Dutch Schultz doesn't control Harlem. Neither does Lucky Luciano. You want to know who does? He stepped in even closer, their faces inches apart now, breath mixing, razor in hand. We do. Every dancer, every voice on stage, every soul swaying on this floor. Harlem is ours, and I'm the one they trust to defend it. Vic was drenched in sweat. His bravado was long gone. What do you want from me? He croaked. Bumpy's voice dropped to that deadly softness, like a velvet noose. I want you to understand something, he said. You marched into the Savoy like you own the place. Like Harlem's just another district to muscle into. You had money. You had 6 armed men. You had arrogance. But you forgot one detail. The silence around them was suffocating. 3 seconds passed before Bumpy answered his own statement. You forgot that a razor makes it personal. His fingers shifted slightly, just enough to make the blade catch the light again. Vic recoiled like he'd been grazed. So here's what we're gonna do, Bumpy continued, still calm, still terrifying. You've got 2 roads in front of you. First option, you address Duke Ellington directly, loud, clear, like a man. You apologize in front of everyone. Then you turn around, walk out of this ballroom with your boys, and you tell Dutch Schultz exactly what I said. Vic licked his lips. And if I don't, Bumpy smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made experienced men panic inside. Option 2, I open this razor and show you why I earned every inch of Harlem's respect, why they call me the king. He leaned closer until there was no space left. Vic could barely breathe. And Vic, I really, really hope you pick option 2. The room held still. You could have heard a spoon hit the floor. Every eye locked on the 2 men, on the razor. The only thing filling the silence was Vic's ragged breathing. And here's the thing, Bumpy continued to whisper again. You pull a trigger, it's mechanical. Loud, sure, but impersonal. Fire, recoil, done. dead man clean. But this, he turned the blade in his fingers, smooth and easy. This takes effort. You have to get close. You have to look him in the eyes. You have to hear him beg. Feel the heat come off him. Smell the fear coming out his skin like sweat. He paused, studying Vic's face. And I've had a lot of practice. Vic's knees almost gave way. One of his men instinctively reached to hold him steady. Bumpy didn't blink. So, what's it gonna be? The easy way or the less than easy? Vic swallowed hard, tried to speak, failed. Then finally his voice cracked like dried leaves. I'll apologize. Louder, Bumpy demanded. That was a whisper. Say it so Duke can hear you. Vic turned jerkily toward the stage. Duke still stood there, drenched and stoic, watching history reshape beneath his feet. I'm sorry, Vic said, his voice still shaky. Mr. Ellington, I apologize. It was disrespectful. It was wrong. Bumpy stepped toward him slightly. Look him in the eye when you say it, like a man. Vic obeyed, met Duke's gaze. Found no fury there, just a kind of exhausted disappointment, too complicated to understand. I'm sorry, Mr. Ellington, Vic stammered again. Truly, it won't happen again. Before we dive deeper, here's a quick pause. What would you have done in Bumpy's shoes? Would you choose peace or pull the razor? Drop your answer in the comments, we're dying to know. And if this moment gave you chills or made you feel something, tap that like and hit subscribe for more true legends from the streets that shaped history. Bumpy turned to Duke now, the razor still in hand. You good with that? And Duke, the soul of Harlem itself, nodded slowly, his eyes glassed with emotion. Yeah, Bumpy, he said softly. I accept. Bumpy gave a single, almost imperceptible nod, then faced Vic again. The blade still shone in his fingers, bright and lucid. Good, Bumpy said. Now here's what's next. You and your crew walk out. Quietly, don't rush. Don't make a scene. Walk like men who learned something tonight about lines and boundaries. He leaned in, razor cutting the space between them with its silence. But Vic, if I ever hear your name again anywhere north of 110th Street, if you so much as breathe in Harlem's direction, I won't come with options. Next time, it's just the razor. Understood? Vic nodded like his head was on a spring. Crystal clear. Then get out of my sight. Vic and his 6 men didn't run, but they moved like men walking away from their own open graves. They filed out the ballroom with heads low, their silence louder than anything they'd said all night. The thick weight in the room lifted inch by inch with their departure. Then it broke. It started with a single pair of hands clapping, then another, then dozens, then the entire Savoy Ballroom erupted, not in idle applause, but in a roar of furious relief and gratitude, a release of fear held too long in the chest, a celebration of something untouched, defended. Bumpy turned to Duke, razor still in his grip like Excalibur. From the top, Duke, let's give them what they came here for. Duke returned to his piano like a man coming home. His fingers hovered over the keys. He looked at Bumpy, then mouthed quietly, "Thank you." Bumpy nodded once. Then he turned and retook his place by the wall, as if none of it had happened at all. Duke began to play. But it wasn't just music now, it was power. It was protest. Every note said what words couldn't. You will not humiliate me. You will not strip us of joy. You will not stain Harlem. The Savoy shook with applause, not just for the music, but for the message beneath it. People danced again, but lighter now, freer. Because they'd seen a line drawn, seen justice served not in courtrooms or headlines, but right there, between one man, a blade, and absolute conviction. Stephanie walked over and touched Bumpy's arm, gently, like she was anchoring herself from the emotions still swirling in the air. You enjoyed that, she said, offering a knowing smile. I enjoyed watching him nearly piss himself, Bumpy replied. But more than that, I enjoyed proving a point. To him, to them, to all of us. We don't take disrespect, not because we're afraid of them, but because we're finally proud of ourselves. They'll hit back, Stephanie warned. Schultz won't let this go unanswered. Bumpy's hand shifted again, resting on the razor tucked back in his waistband. "Let him send whoever he wants. I'll be waiting." And Vincent Romano? He was packed and gone by sunrise. Word spread like wildfire. Harlem was closed, blocked to Dutch Schultz, off limits to every Italian with a business plan. Schultz didn't take the news well. He tested the limits, sent new men over the line. 2 weeks later, they were dragged out of the Harlem River with razors embedded in their chests and a note pinned to one of the bodies, postage paid, return to sender. Within 90 days, the Italians pulled out entirely, not because they lacked resources, but because Harlem's cost was measured in blood and Bumpy had made it too damn expensive. That night went down in urban history, not just as a gangster moment, but as the night Harlem itself stood tall. The night Bumpy Johnson met Vic the Blade Romano on Savoy's polished maple floor became legend, a story passed down not just in whispers or barbershop corners, but in the rhythms of Harlem itself. The night one man, armed with nothing but steel and soul, faced down an entire criminal empire and defended not just a jazz musician, but an entire neighborhood's pride. Bumpy didn't just scare a made man that night. He defined a legacy. He didn't just protect Duke Ellington from humiliation. He built a wall around black dignity and carved his name into Harlem's spine. Years went by. Harlem changed. Battles came and went. In time, Bumpy found himself behind bars, locked away in Alcatraz on conspiracy charges. But even steel bars couldn't keep legends from walking. One day, Duke Ellington came to visit. The musician, the once humiliated king of jazz. Sitting across from the man who had defended him, they sat in the sterile visiting room, 2 lives, 2 worlds, linked by one night neither would ever forget. Duke broke the silence. "Why'd you do it, Bumpy?" he asked. "You could have let it slide, could have played the long game. You wouldn't be in here if you had." He gestured faintly, the cold walls, the guards, the chains of consequence. Bumpy offered a soft smile. "Duke, you know what separates a gangster from a king?" Duke shook his head. "A gangster takes," Bumpy said. "But a king protects." He leaned in, elbows on the metal table, voice low but firm. "That night, I wasn't just standing up for you. I was standing up for what you represent. Black brilliance that doesn't apologize, that doesn't bow, that doesn't accept disrespect just because the world expects it." He paused for a moment, eyes steady. "You think I regret it? That razor didn't just open up Romano's pride. It opened eyes. Harlem's. Ours. It showed us we didn't have to take scraps, that our dignity wasn't negotiable, that respect wasn't something to request, it was something to demand." Duke blinked. His eyes shone. "You know what you gave me, Bumpy? What's that?" "You gave me pride, man." Duke's voice trembled. "Before that night, I was always performing with my head tilted down, like my art had to excuse my color. But that night, I wasn't playing in spite of being black. I was playing because I was black, because we're excellent, because we matter." Bumpy nodded. "You always mattered, Duke. That's what I was proving." March 15th, 1935. One night in Harlem, a night where art met fury, where poetry wore a blade, where justice was spelled out in front of 200 people and a stage soaked in champagne. The kind of night that makes history, not with ink, but with blood and courage. The razor Bumpy carried that night, it never left his side. Through Alcatraz, through turf wars and rival hits, through betrayal and loyalty, it was always there. An extension of his hand. A reminder of who he was, what Harlem was. When Bumpy Johnson died in 1968, they found that same blade in his pocket, still sharpened, still waiting, still carrying the same quiet warning from that night. You can buy your way through Manhattan. You can fight for turf in the Bronx. But Harlem is family. And Harlem protects its own. And if anyone forgets that, they remember the hard way, one razor cut at a time. Bumpy's story isn't just about power, it's about pride, protection, and standing up when no one else will. If this story moved you, let it live beyond today. Tap that like, smash subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded what real leadership looks like. And hey, something to think about. What does protecting your community mean to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one.